Planning is important in your artwork. It helps to give it structure and it adds to your composition. However, that shouldn't get in the way of your creativity or the flow of your paint. Welcome to my studio. Let's get right into it. So, let's dive right in. I'm going to start off by applying a few layers of gesso. For these panels, I'm applying 6 layers. I am doing that to establish a nice white ground to work off of. I'm giving some paint that will soak into the panel to prevent our painting from soaking in too much. And then finally it's going to create a nice smooth layer for us to work on. My second step here is simply to begin to sand and create some grit on the panel itself to help the paint actually stick and adhere once we begin to apply it. I'm also looking for any kind of imperfections that from the gesso, any kind of droplets or that kind of thing to make sure that I have a nice surface to work on. With our panels prepared, what I'll do next is mix our color palette. In this case, I'm using 4 colors. Payne's Gray for our blue stand-in, Yellow Ochre for our yellow, Burnt Umber for our reddish stand-in, and then fine titanium white to help me establish value. What you can see me doing here is basically establishing 4 rows on the palette, with each one having a slightly lighter value than the next, going through with a palette knife and gently mixing the colors together until I have a nicely, neatly organized palette, which I'll be using throughout the video to really make sure that I'm working from dark to light in these acrylic paints. With my paints prepared and my palette ready to go, what I'm going to do next is really look at my panel with the wash I've already applied to it, and I'm going to look for any kind of dark shapes that are on there. And I'm going to see if the panel itself can give me inspiration itself. Again, the idea here is not to plan anything, and to kind of just to see what the paint has already decided for me, and to let the brush decide and make choices for me. And what I'm really doing is looking at the dark shapes that were already on the panel, and then reinforcing them with my darkest shade, as mostly going to be Payne's Gray and Burnt Umber, and then using that to establish the main composition of the panel here. And what I basically saw were 2 or 3 dominant shapes on the panel, which I thought would make a nice V composition on the panel itself. And again, all I'm really doing here is enforcing dark shapes and letting the panel come to life on itself and letting the panel choose where it wants to have the darkest forms be. I'm just taking my filbert brush here and I'm pressing into the panel, making it as textured as I possibly can, because I want to have an impasto feeling that my future paint can stick to. And as I'm going through, I am basically now reinforcing that with some color, and I have now chosen a more medium value to put in this kind of mid-ground or background area, and I'm letting that mix with the sky behind it to create a kind of glow or sense of light on the piece or work itself. As that mid-ground takes shape, what I'm beginning to think about is where I want the viewer's eye to get trapped. And so what I'm going to do here is just create a twin of our tree on the right hand side and create something similar on the left hand side to help trap the viewer's eye in the middle of the work. And from there, what I'm going to begin thinking about is where I want the light of the painting to be positioned. And that's kind of why I began to rework in the sky some. I'm doing this upside down to help my hand get a better angle and to help pull the acrylic paint down and away from the main body of the painting, and to help make it appear as if the light rays are shining upward into the painting. Again, the overall goal here was to really make something, a sky that was active, without letting the sky be blue. You'll notice that the blue on this piece is very, very light, if noticeable at all, because I've mixed it heavily with the yellow ochre. As a stylistic choice, what I'm kind of imagining is a bright summer evening, maybe with a storm on the horizon where the sky, for whatever reason, isn't seeming to be very blue. And I kind of want to experiment and play with this to see if I could create a compelling sky without using a blue color. The other reason I'm turning the wood panel here is to let myself work on different parts of the painting and to let the acrylic paint dry a little. So it's really a very practical consideration. And again, I really wanted to create a painting that didn't necessarily have a bright blue sky, and I wanted to really scumble in texture on the bottom piece that required. When using acrylic paint, scumbling means applying a very, very light texture layer, which you're going to see me apply here as we wrap the painting up. And this scumble layer is really a very light pressure where I am taking paint, putting it on the brush from the palette, wiping some on the canvas, and then applying a very, very light pressure to the texture that I've already applied in that first layer of painting. And this really creates a lot of the very detailed texture effects that you're seeing as I go along. And it really helps to create the illusion of more detail than I've actually applied. Um, and in that way, the viewer has the impression of a tree or pine needles or branches without me actually applying very much in the way of paint, or without actually trying to apply heavy doses of paint. If you're enjoying me watching me paint, and if you do like seeing my journey, please feel free to subscribe as well as like this video. It really does help me go a long way. I am also listing this painting for sale on Etsy. If it is something that you are interested in purchasing, please let me know, or feel free to give my store a search. I have linked it as the first comment below, so feel free to check me out if need be. Even clicking on the link does help me a ton, and it really helps my store gain visibility as a artist who is starting out. And I really thank you for the time and attention you have given me here, so I really do appreciate it. I'm hoping that we see each other again soon, that you continue watching my work, and thank you very much for joining me.